So you heard Barack Obama pulled this idiotic stunt at the end of the day on Wednesday. And he said, no, we're not going to do the Keystone oil pipeline because the Republicans did not give me enough time to figure it out. Never mind that this has been going on for months, if not years. Obama says, the Republican Party didn't give me enough time to figure this out. And so I'm going to say no. This is supposed to be a jobs president. Obama is supposed to be focused on creating jobs. But no, we're not going to do the Keystone Pipeline from Canada. I could go into a whole rant here about how insane this is, about the rising price of oil worldwide, about what Iran is up to, threatening to interrupt the distribution of oil. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Obama knows that the country runs on oil. Planes, trains, buses, automobiles, trucks, ocean liners, everything runs on oil. But Obama would prefer that oil prices skyrocket because then Americans are going to use less. Americans are going to cut their usage of oil because it would become so expensive they can't afford to use it anymore. That's what Obama wants. Obama feels that it is more important to appease the far left and the environmentalist movement than it is to do something that Americans would applaud. Obama could actually raise his approval numbers by giving the Keystone Pipeline a thumbs up. But he refuses. Why? Because the agenda of the far left is far more important than doing anything that is good for America. There's a petition at dickmorris.com to fight against this decision. That link is in the show notes. You can click there and sign the petition. But it gets even worse. We go back to 2009. Well, back then, over 2 years ago, the concern was Obama's approval of an investment of $2 billion taxpayer dollars for offshore oil drilling in Brazil. Now remember, even though Petrobras, which is the state-owned oil company in Brazil that's going to be doing, or that has been doing, the offshore oil drilling, even though that oil company is state-owned, billionaire investment manager George Soros built on his position in Brazilian oil and gas company Petrobras in the first quarter of 2011. This is an article at Forbes. George Soros now owns 1.1 million shares of Brazil's state-owned oil company. Here's a bit of what I talked about on the show back in August of 2009 regarding the U.S. loan to the Brazilian oil company, that is, the oil company owned by the Brazilian government. It says here, U.S. loan to Brazilian oil company riles conservatives in favor of offshore drilling. Some see a contradiction, you think, in an executive branch agency facilitating abroad the very kind of energy exploration President Obama opposes domestically. Nah, it's not a contradiction. Come on. President Obama has opposed any expansion of oil drilling off American shores largely on environmental grounds, turning a deaf ear to conservative cries of drill, baby, drill. But now Obama may start hearing cries of foul after the U.S. Export-Import Bank promised Petrobras, Brazil's state-owned oil company, $2 billion in loan guarantees to help finance lucrative drilling off the shores of Rio de Janeiro. Some see a contradiction in an executive branch agency, independent but with board members appointed by the president, facilitating abroad the very kind of energy exploration Obama opposes domestically. White House spokesman Robert Gibbs said Thursday he was not prepared to address the issue. Quote, this is Robert Gibbs, the White House spokesman. Quote, I have not seen the story, he said. I'd have to take a look. Well, here we are a couple of years later, and the oil is pumping. I got an article this morning via email from Barbara, who is both a listener and very generous supporter of the Jimmy Z Show. At the Washington Times, China gets the jump on the U.S. for Brazil's oil. Like we didn't know the oil was going to be pumped. We loaned money to them so that they could drill the oil. And now it looks like the oil is going to China. Unbelievable. Either the president is this terribly inept, or it's all done by design. And it's hard to argue that it's not done by design. Off the coast of Rio de Janeiro, below a mile of water and 2 miles of shifting rock, sand, and salt, is an ultra-deep sea of oil that could turn Brazil into the world's 4th largest oil producer behind Russia, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. The country's state-owned oil company, Petrobras, expects to pump 4.9 million barrels a day from the country's oil fields by 2020, with 40% of that coming from the seabed. 1.5 million barrels will be bound for export markets. The United States wants it, but China is getting it. Less than a month after President Obama visited Brazil in March to make a pitch for that oil, Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff was off to Beijing to sign oil contracts with 2 huge state-owned Chinese companies. The deals are part of a growing oil relationship between the 2 countries that, thanks to a series of billion-dollar agreements, is giving China greater influence over Brazil's oil.
We screwed up a bunch. I take responsibility for it, and I think I made a mistake.
Had to do anything differently during your first 4 years, what would it be?
Well, it's only been 2.5, so I'm sure I'll make more mistakes in the next year and a half.
Obama sucks.
We have a real challenge. It is imperative that we defeat Barack Obama. This is, I believe, the most dangerous president of our lifetime. And if he is reelected after the disaster he has been, the level of radicalism of his second term will be truly frightening.
2012, the election year. This may very well be our last chance to save America. Politically and spiritually, personally and collectively, we have an election to win. Let's get it done.